Show me the other one. Angelo Vitale didn't raise his voice when he said it. He didn't have to. In the Velvet Room, where senators drank beside real estate tycoons and men with clean suits carried dirty favors, silence obeyed him faster than shouting ever could. Aisha froze with the champagne bottle tilted in her hands. The music was smooth, the light soft, the kind of place that pretended nothing ugly ever happened. But her wrist, what peeked out from the cuff of her crisp black sleeve, told a different truth. A faint bruise, fresh enough to still be tender, hidden like a secret she'd practiced hiding. She tried to pull her hand back. Angelo's fingers closed around her wrist, not tight, not rough, just enough to stop her from disappearing. And the second he felt her flinch, like his touch sparked a memory she didn't want, he loosened immediately. "Sorry," he said, quieter now. "I'm not trying to scare you." Aisha forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's nothing." I bumped into a door. Angelo's gaze didn't move from her sleeve. Calm, patient, deadly in a way that didn't need weapons. "A door hit you twice?" he asked. Her throat bobbed. She adjusted the tray on her hip like she could balance the whole world if she just held it right. "I'm fine." Have you ever said that? "I'm fine." Because telling the truth felt more dangerous than swallowing it. Have you ever smiled in front of people who would help you? Because you were more afraid of what happened after they helped. Aisha's eyes flicked around the table. Wealthy strangers, men who could buy peace with a phone call, women who wore diamonds like armor. None of them knew what her hallway looked like at night. None of them heard the way a lock clicked when someone decided you weren't leaving. She kept her voice light. "Mr. Vitale, I really—" "Look at me," Angelo said. It wasn't a command that demanded obedience. It was an offer. A question hidden inside two words. "Are you safe?" Aisha's gaze met his for half a second. Just long enough for him to see it. Not the bruise. The fear underneath it. Her shoulders were too tight. Her smile too rehearsed. Her sleeves too long for a room this warm. And when one of Angelo's men laughed at a joke down the table, the sound made her blink like she was bracing for something. Angelo glanced at Marco, his right hand, without turning his head. Marco was already watching, already reading the room. Aisha tried again. "It's nothing. I can handle it." Angelo's jaw flexed once, the only crack in the calm. Because he'd seen women handle it until they couldn't. Because he'd seen bruises become apologies. Then promises. Then worse. And because there was something about Aisha, 3 weeks in his club, moving through rich people's noise like she didn't belong to any of it, that kept catching his attention. Not in a reckless way. In a way that felt like responsibility and temptation fighting for the same space in his chest. "I'm not your problem," she whispered, like she needed him to believe it so she could survive the night. Angelo leaned back slightly, giving her space. "You're right," he said. "You're not my property." Her eyes widened at that, like she'd expected the opposite. Like every man who ever claimed to care about her made it about ownership. Angelo's voice stayed low. "But someone put their hands on you." Aisha's fingers tightened on the tray. "You don't know that." "I do," he said. "I know the way you're hiding. I know the way you're protecting whoever did it." She swallowed. Her gaze slid toward the exit, toward the front doors and the cold street outside. Like escape was a direction, not a plan. Angelo followed her eyes and then looked back at her face. "Is he waiting for you?" Aisha didn't answer. That was the answer. Marco shifted his stance. A couple of the men at the table went still, like they felt something change in the air and didn't know why. Aisha forced another laugh that sounded like it hurt. "Mr. Vitale, please." "Don't do this." "Do what?" Angelo asked. "Make it a thing." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I just need to get through my shift." Angelo stared at the bruise again, then at her eyes. "And after your shift?" Silence. Then, barely audible, Aisha said, "I'll be fine." Angelo's hand lifted, slow, deliberate, and he let go of her wrist completely. No grip, no threat, no cornering. But his eyes didn't soften. His voice dropped even lower, meant only for her. "Whoever did this," he said, "won't touch you again." Aisha's breath caught. "You can't promise that." Angelo's mouth twitched. No smile, just certainty. "Watch me." Before we jump in, tap subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Because what happens when a control freak decides he owns someone, and he crosses paths with a man like Angelo Vitale? It doesn't end with a conversation. It ends with consequences. Aisha backed away like she'd stepped too close to a fire. "I have tables," she said quickly, and turned before anyone could see her eyes shine. Angelo watched her go. Then he looked at Marco again. "Find out who she goes home to," Angelo said. Marco hesitated. "Boss?" This could start something. Angelo's gaze stayed on Aisha's retreating figure, on the sleeve pulled tight over pain she wasn't ready to name. "It already did," he said. Because what Angelo didn't know yet was that this wasn't just a boyfriend problem. The man hurting Aisha wasn't just violent. He was connected. And the moment Angelo noticed those bruises in the velvet room, he didn't just put a target on that man's back. He stepped into a war nobody saw coming. The velvet room kept smiling like nothing was wrong. At the very important presentable, men in tailored suits leaned over crystal glasses, talking about zoning permits and campaign dinners like they weren't sitting 10 feet from people who could ruin their lives with one phone call. A jazz singer floated through the speakers. Waitstaff moved like shadows. And Angelo Vitale sat at the center of it all, still watching the one shadow that didn't move like the rest. Aisha. She crossed the floor with a tray balanced on her palm, chin lifted like she had practiced, looking unbothered, but her shoulders were tight, her sleeves were long, and every time a man laughed too loud, her body reacted before her face did. Angelo's men were arguing quietly about tomorrow's shipment schedule. Angelo didn't join in. His eyes followed Aisha like a warning. She reached the table with the champagne bottle and the flutes. "Good evening, gentlemen." The words were professional. Her voice wasn't. It sat too high, too careful. Angelo watched the way her fingers held the bottle. Too tight, white-knuckle tight. "Easy," Marco muttered under his breath, noticing it too. Aisha poured for the first man, then the next. The third glass filled faster than she meant. A thin stream slid over the rim. "No," she whispered, trying to correct it. The champagne spilled across the linen, sparkling under the low lights. A hush hit the table, not because of the spill, because of who was sitting there. Aisha's breath stuttered. Her eyes darted to Angelo like she'd just stepped onto a landmine. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly. "I'll fix it. One of the guests scoffed. "Do you know how much that—" Angelo's hand moved before the man finished his sentence. He reached out and caught Aisha's wrist to stop her from jerking the tray and spilling more. Just a light grip, controlled. But the moment his fingers touched her skin, Aisha flinched hard. Not a small startle. A full-body reflex, like she expected pain. Angelo felt it like an electric wire snapping. He let go immediately. His eyes sharpened, not at her, at himself. "Breathe," he said. "Low. You're okay." Aisha swallowed. She forced her shoulders down like she could push the reaction back inside her chest. "Yes, sir. I'm sorry." Angelo's gaze dropped to her sleeve. The cuff had ridden up just enough in the chaos. A bruise sat there, half hidden and stubborn. Not makeup. Not a clumsy bump. Not old enough to ignore. Aisha tugged the sleeve down fast. Too fast. Angelo didn't say bruise out loud. Not here. Not in front of people who would turn it into gossip. Or worse, use it. He lifted his chin slightly, and the man who'd complained shut his mouth like the air got cut off. "It's a tablecloth," Angelo said. "Calm. Final. You'll survive." The guest blinked, then nodded quickly. "Of course. My mistake." Aisha stood frozen, still holding the tray, like she didn't trust her knees. Angelo leaned back just enough to give her space, then spoke again, so low it didn't travel past her. "What's your name?" he asked. Her eyes widened. That wasn't part of the script. My name," she repeated, like she didn't know what to do with the question. Angelo held her gaze. "Yes, Aisha," she said. "Aisha Caldwell." He nodded once, as if filing it away, as if saying it mattered. "Aisha," Angelo repeated softly, and her throat tightened like the sound of her own name in his mouth made everything more real. Marco watched from the side, his face blank, but his eyes quick. He was reading her the way he'd read a threat. Aisha tried to step back. "I'll get a fresh cloth and—" "Leave it," Angelo said. "Get yourself together first." "I'm fine," she blurted, too fast. Angelo didn't react to the words. He reacted to the fear behind them. He leaned forward slightly, keeping his voice low and even. "Look at me." Aisha's gaze met his for half a heartbeat, then dropped. Her lashes trembled like she was holding something back. Angelo kept his tone clean. "Did someone do that to you?" Her lips parted. then shut again. "I bumped into a door," she said, forcing a small laugh that sounded thin. "It's nothing." Angelo stared at her cuff. "A door doesn't follow you home." Aisha stiffened. Her eyes flicked toward the entrance, toward the front doors and the street outside. Like she was counting how fast she could leave if she had to. Angelo clocked it. He didn't press her. "Not here. Not now." Instead, he reached into his inner pocket and placed a clean white napkin on the table, sliding it toward her like an offering. "Take a second," he said. "Wipe the spill. Then go to the back." Aisha hesitated. "I can't just—" "You can," Angelo said, gentle but firm. "Tell your floor manager I said so." She looked like she wanted to argue, like she wanted to say she didn't need special treatment, but her hands were shaking. "Okay," she whispered. She wiped the table quickly, eyes down, and stepped away like she was afraid the room would swallow her. Angelo watched her disappear through the staff hallway. Marco leaned in. "Boss." Angelo didn't look away from the hallway. "I saw it. You want me to—" "Not in here," Angelo said. "Not in front of them." Marco's jaw flexed. "Then what?" Angelo finally turned his eyes back to his table. He picked up his glass, but he didn't drink. "Keep your voice down," he said, still calm. "And keep your eyes open." Marco's gaze narrowed. "You think it's her boyfriend?" Angelo's expression didn't change. "I think somebody got comfortable." He tapped his finger once on the rim of his glass. A quiet signal. Marco straightened. "You want me to find out who she goes home to?" Angelo nodded. Marco hesitated. "Boss? This could start something." Angelo's eyes flicked toward the hallway again, toward where Aisha had vanished. "It already did," he said, and the velvet room kept smiling, even as the temperature in Angelo's world dropped by 10 degrees. Aisha didn't go straight to the back office. She went to the restroom first, because it had a lock. She pushed inside, braced her palms on the sink, and stared at herself like she didn't recognize the face looking back. Her makeup was still perfect. That was the problem. From the outside, she looked fine. Her hands trembled when she tried to adjust her sleeve again. "Aisha," she whispered to herself. "Get it together." She ran cold water, splashed her face once, then twice. The mirror didn't change. It just showed her the same lie with better lighting. A knock hit the door. "Aisha," a female voice called. "You okay?" It was Liana, one of the other servers. Aisha swallowed fast. "Yeah, just fixing my hair." "You spilled on the boss's table?" Liana's voice was half curious, half horrified. Aisha let out a small laugh. "Yeah, I know, a beat. And he didn't blow up?" "No," Aisha said, and the word came out softer than she meant. Liana lowered her voice. "Girl, that man does not do nice unless he wants something." Aisha's chest tightened. "He didn't. He just told me to take a second." Liana paused. "Still, be careful." Aisha stared at the bruise again, then forced her sleeve down. "I am—" When Liana walked away, Aisha exhaled like she'd been holding her breath underwater. She waited until her pulse slowed, then stepped out. The staff hallway smelled like citrus cleaner and warm bread from the kitchen. She moved quickly, head down, like speed could keep her invisible. But her mind kept replaying the moment Angelo's fingers touched her wrist and her body betrayed her. He let go. He apologized. He didn't grab again. That was what made it confusing. The floor manager intercepted her near the kitchen. "Aisha, you good? Table 12 just asked for you." Aisha forced a smile. "Yes, I'm good." The manager leaned in, lowering his voice. "Angelo said you could take a minute. You don't gotta rush." Aisha blinked. "He said that?" The manager shrugged like he didn't want to be involved. "I don't ask questions. I just listen when he talks." Aisha nodded quickly. "Right. Okay. I'll go back out." She stepped back onto the main floor, and the velvet room wrapped around her again. Music, laughter, clinking glasses, soft lighting. She moved from table to table like she was performing. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Not by the customers, by the man who owned the room. At the very important person table, Angelo sat in the same posture, relaxed like a king with nowhere to be. His men spoke quietly around him, but he barely moved. His attention was on the flow of the room, on exits, on patterns, on her. Aisha kept her face neutral and focused on her work, and still she felt it, the pull of his gaze, and the fact that it wasn't hungry. It was alert, protective, like he'd seen something he couldn't unsee. Near midnight, the crowd thinned. The loudest guests left first, escorted by men who smiled too easily. Staff began resetting tables. The jazz softened. The lights dimmed slightly. Aisha collected empty glasses at the bar. She kept her sleeves down. She kept her voice even. She kept her "I'm fine" ready like armor. She almost made it through the last stretch without crossing Angelo again. Almost. She turned from the bar with a tray of glasses and found him standing at the edge of the very important person section, not surrounded by his men. Just him. Angelo Vitale, close enough that she could smell his cologne, clean and expensive, like money that never sweats. Aisha stopped short. "Mr. Vitale, Angelo," he corrected quietly. That made her stomach twist. First her name. Now his. She tightened her grip on the tray. "Okay, Angelo, is everything all right?" Angelo glanced at the tray. "You're done soon?" "In about 15 minutes, he nodded once. "Good." Aisha frowned. "Good?" He held her gaze. "Because you're not walking home alone tonight." Her heart kicked hard. "I didn't ask for... I know." His voice stayed calm. "I'm not asking you for anything either." Aisha's mouth went dry. "Then why?" Angelo's eyes didn't leave hers. "Because somebody thinks they can put marks on you and still sleep at night." Aisha's throat tightened. "It's not..." Angelo raised his hand slightly, stopping her without touching her. "I'm not going to make you explain." She blinked. That was new. That was dangerous. Kindness could be more dangerous than anger when you were used to surviving. Angelo continued, voice low. "I'm not going to corner you. I'm not going to force you to talk. I'm not going to drag you into my world." Aisha swallowed. "Then what are you going to do?" Angelo's jaw flexed once, like he was choosing every word carefully. "I'm going to make sure you get home safe. Tonight." Aisha stared at him. "And tomorrow?" Angelo's eyes softened just enough to feel real. "Tomorrow you get to decide what you want." Aisha let out a shaky breath. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," Angelo said. "And I know what I refuse to be." He paused, then added quietly, more to himself than to her, "I won't become another man who decides your life for you." Aisha felt those words land in her chest like weight and warmth at the same time. She wanted to believe him. She also knew what believing people cost. Aisha glanced toward the front doors. "If you do this, it'll make things worse." Angelo's gaze followed hers. "It's already worse if you're hiding bruises under your sleeves." Aisha's fingers trembled. She steadied them by shifting the tray. Angelo stayed still, giving her room to breathe. "Finish your shift," he said. "When you're done, you'll see my car out front. You can get in. Or you can walk away." "Your choice." Aisha's chest tightened again. A choice. He was offering a choice. She nodded once, barely. "Okay." Angelo stepped back, letting the space return. "Good," he said softly. "I'll be right here." And as he turned slightly, Aisha saw Marco at the edge of the room, watching like a guard dog that didn't bark. She looked away fast. 15 minutes later, she clocked out with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Her manager handed her coat. "You sure you good?" Aisha forced a smile. "Yeah." She stepped out into the Providence night, and the drizzle hit her face like a warning. She pulled her hood up and scanned the sidewalk. A black car waited at the curb. Clean. Quiet. Engine running. But something else was there, too. A shadow near the edge of the street. A figure she recognized before she even saw his face, and her blood went cold. The drizzle had turned the sidewalk slick. Streetlights reflected in the wet pavement like broken gold. Aisha's heart beat hard enough to hurt. Darius Cole leaned against the brick wall across from the club, hands in his pockets like he was just waiting for a friend, like he had every right to be there. Like he didn't understand the meaning of boundaries even when they were shouted. He wore a dark hoodie and jeans. Nothing fancy. Nothing that matched the world inside the velvet room. But his eyes were sharp, possessive, familiar in the worst way. Aisha's feet kept moving because stopping would make him feel powerful. Darius pushed off the wall and crossed the street slowly, matching her pace. "Aisha!" he called, voice sweet like syrup. She didn't answer. He clicked his tongue. "Don't do that." Aisha kept walking toward the corner, toward the bus stop, toward anywhere with other people. Darius closed the distance. "You think you can ignore me now?" Aisha's mouth went dry. She kept her voice low. "Not here. Not here?" Darius laughed, quiet and sharp. "So you care what they think now? You got new standards?" Aisha finally glanced at him. "Why are you here?" Darius leaned closer, smiling like this was a date. Because I missed you, he said, and the lie slid out smooth. Because you didn't answer my calls. I was working. In that place, he said, looking past her, at the velvet room sign, like it offended him. Serving those people. Aisha's fingers clenched inside her coat. It's my job. Darius's smile tightened. And you're mine. Aisha's breath caught. She hated how her body reacted to those words, how her muscles tensed, like they remembered what happened when she disagreed. She forced her voice to stay even. Don't say that. Darius's eyes flashed. Why not? You got somebody in there telling you different? Aisha looked away. No. Darius stepped into her path, blocking the sidewalk. She stopped short, chest rising fast. Look at me, he said. Aisha held her stare on his chin instead, on the edge of his jaw, anywhere but his eyes. Darius's voice softened. Baby, I'm just trying to protect what's mine. You don't understand the kind of men in that place. Aisha let out a bitter breath. You don't protect me. Darius's expression shifted. Just for a second, something angry slipping through. Then he pulled it back into that fake calm. Don't talk like that, he said. I do everything for you. Aisha's hands trembled. She made them still by pressing her nails into her palm. Everything, she repeated. Like what? Like telling me what to wear? Like checking my phone? Like showing up at my job? Darius leaned closer, lowering his voice. I show up because I care. You show up because you don't trust me. Darius's smile vanished. You haven't earned trust. Aisha's stomach dropped. She knew this line. She knew where it went. She shifted her weight like she might step around him. Darius caught it. His hand shot out and grabbed her forearm. Not hard enough to leave a new mark. Just hard enough to remind her he could. Aisha sucked in air. Darius's voice stayed quiet. Don't make a scene. Aisha's eyes flicked to the black car at the curb. The one Angelo promised. The one she hadn't decided to get into yet. The thought hit her like a spark. If Darius sees that car, he'll know. And if he knows, he'll punish her later when no one is watching. Aisha lowered her voice. Let go. Darius leaned in, lips close to her ear, almost tender from the outside. You think you're too good for me now because you serve rich people? He whispered. You think you can upgrade? Aisha swallowed, forcing herself not to shake. I'm just trying to go home. That's funny, Darius murmured. Because home is wherever I say it is. Aisha's eyes burned. She blinked hard. Stop! Darius's grip tightened slightly. You want to tell me why your sleeve is messed up? Aisha's pulse jumped. She pulled her arm back, but his grip followed. It's nothing, she lied fast. Darius smiled again. That's what I thought. His eyes slid toward the club entrance, then toward the black car, then back to her. I saw you talking to him, Darius said softly. Aisha's breath caught. What? Darius tilted his head. Don't play dumb. I saw the way he looked at you. Like you're a prize. Aisha's voice dropped to a whisper. You were watching me? Darius's smile widened. I watch what's mine. Aisha's skin went cold under the drizzle. She forced herself to look past him, to the street, to the car. The passenger door hadn't opened. No one had stepped out. Angelo was letting her choose, but Darius wasn't. Darius leaned in closer, his voice turning sweet again, like he was explaining love. You need to quit that job, he said. I don't like you being around men like that. Aisha shook her head once, small, controlled. No. Darius's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? No, she repeated, steadier this time. I'm not quitting. Darius stared at her like she'd slapped him. Then he chuckled. Low. Okay, he said. So this is what we're doing. Aisha swallowed. Please don't. Darius cut her off, voice still low, still careful. You want to act brave outside? Fine. But don't forget something. He leaned in, his mouth near her ear, and his words hit like ice. I got eyes on you in there. Aisha's body went rigid. Darius pulled back, smiling like he'd just said something romantic. Then he released her arm and stepped aside like a gentleman, giving her the sidewalk back. Go ahead, he said. Go do your little walk. Get in your little car. Aisha didn't move. Darius's smile stayed in place, but his eyes hardened. You're gonna learn, he said softly. Love means listening. Aisha's throat tightened. She took one step, then another. She moved toward the black car like it was the only solid thing left in the night, and behind her, Darius's voice followed, quiet and certain. "I'll be seeing you, Aisha." She reached the passenger door. Her hand hovered over the handle, and for the first time, the choice wasn't about pride. It was about survival. If you're still with me, subscribe right now, and comment where you're watching from, because the moment Aisha steps out of that club tonight, you'll see why Angelo Vitale doesn't make promises unless he's ready to break somebody's whole plan. Sunday came with gray skies and a cold drizzle that wouldn't decide if it wanted to be rain. Aisha sat in the third row at New Hope Baptist, hands folded in her lap, smiling at people who loved her enough to notice when her smile got smaller. The choir lifted the room the way it always did. Strong voices, clapping on the 2 and 4, the kind of music that made you feel held even when your week had tried to break you. Aisha sang softly, but her eyes kept drifting to the exit like she needed to know she could leave if she had to. When the pastor called for a moment of greeting, Monique slid into the pew beside her with a grin and a side hug. "Girl," Monique whispered, "you've been hiding." Aisha let out a quiet laugh. "I've been working." Monique leaned back to look at her face. Working or disappearing? Aisha's smile tightened. "Monique, don't Monique me," she said, still smiling, but her eyes turned serious. "I know you." Aisha looked forward fast, pretending she was listening hard to the message. The pastor was talking about peace that doesn't come from pretending. Aisha felt her throat close up. After service, church spilled into the small cafe across the street the way it always did. Folks in their Sunday best grabbing coffee. Kids weaving between tables. Aunties laughing loud enough to make the barista smile. Aisha tried to keep it normal. She ordered a tea. She asked Monique about her mom's knee. She laughed at a joke about the choir director's new shoes. Then she reached for her cup. Her sleeve rode up. Monique's smile vanished in 1 second. "Aisha," she said quietly. Aisha froze. "What?" Monique leaned in, voice low, eyes locked on her wrist. "Don't move." Aisha pulled her arm back like a reflex. "It's nothing." Monique didn't budge. "That's not nothing. That's a bruise." Aisha glanced around, suddenly aware of every person in the cafe. "Please," she whispered, "not here." Monique's voice softened, but it didn't get smaller. "Then where? When? How long you been carrying this by yourself?" Aisha swallowed. Her fingers tightened around the cup. "I'm fine." Monique gave her a look that made the lie feel childish. "Aisha, who did that?" Aisha's mouth opened, closed. Her eyes went wet fast, and she hated that more than anything. Monique reached across the table and covered Aisha's hand with her own. No grabbing, no pressure, just warmth. "Talk to me," Monique said. "I'm not judging you. I'm not asking why you stayed. I'm asking what you need." Aisha stared at their hands like they belonged to someone else. I can't say it out loud." Monique nodded once. "Okay, then answer this. Are you safe?" Aisha's silence was loud. Monique exhaled, controlled her voice. "That's him, isn't it?" "Darius?" Aisha flinched at the name. Monique sat back, eyes narrowing. "Oh, I knew it." Aisha's jaw tightened. "It's complicated." "No," Monique said, firm. "It's not complicated. It's painful, and it's scary, and it's messy. But it's not complicated." Aisha's voice shook. "You don't understand him." Monique leaned forward again. "Then help me understand, because I'm not about to watch you fade out." Aisha looked down. The cafe noise blurred. "He wasn't like this at first," she said, barely audible. Monique's eyes softened. "I know. He used to be." "Sweet," Aisha continued, like admitting it hurt. "He'd bring food when I was tired. He'd walk me to my door. He'd call me baby, like it meant something." Monique's hand tightened around Aisha's fingers. "And then?" Aisha swallowed hard. "Then I got the Velvet Room job?" Monique blinked. "That club?" Aisha nodded, shame rising in her chest like heat. "He said he supported me. He said it was good money. But then he started asking questions. Who was there? Who looked at me? What time I got off? He'd call during my shift, and if I didn't answer, he'd show up outside." Monique's jaw set. "That's not love," Aisha whispered. "He says it is." Monique leaned back, eyes shining with anger she was trying not to unleash in public. "What's your plan?" Aisha hesitated. "Plan?" Monique's voice dropped. "Don't play with me. You've been quiet for weeks. You've been missing group chats. You stopped coming to my place. You used to laugh loud. Now you laugh like you're asking permission. So I'll ask again. What's your plan? Aisha stared at the tea like it could answer for her. I'm saving, she admitted. I have a little envelope. Cash. Not in my account. Monique nodded. Good. And then what? I'm going to leave, Aisha said quickly, like she needed to say it before fear talked her out of it. I'm going to go when he's at work. I'm going to change my number. Monique's eyes sharpened. And you think that'll stop him? Aisha's throat tightened. I don't know. But it's all I got. Monique leaned in. Baby, paper help won't protect you if he's the kind of man who thinks you're his. Restraining order, police report. Those are steps, not shields. And you know it. Aisha looked away, tears sitting on her lashes. That's why I'm scared. Monique's voice softened. Then stay with me. Aisha snapped her head back. No, Monique blinked. What do you mean, no? Aisha's hands started shaking. I can't. Why? Monique asked, frustration breaking through. Because you don't want to inconvenience me? Aisha whispered. Because he'll come there. Monique stared at her. Let him. Aisha's eyes flashed with panic. You don't get it. He'll make it ugly. He'll embarrass you. He'll hurt you. He'll... Monique cut in, firm. Listen to me. You are not protecting me by staying with him. Aisha's voice cracked. I'm not trying to protect you. I'm trying not to make everything worse. Monique sat back, took a slow breath, then leaned forward again, gentle this time. Aisha, shame is not a plan. Fear is not a plan. You don't have to sleep in that same trap just because you've been there for a while. Aisha's lips trembled. I don't want people at church to know. Monique's gaze softened. They don't need details. They just need you alive and whole. Aisha blinked hard. I can't stay with you. Monique searched her face. Okay, she said quietly, but you're not doing this alone. Aisha shook her head. Monique, please. Monique lifted her hand, stopping her. No. I'm not letting you go back into that week like everything is normal, Aisha whispered, almost pleading. I just need time. Monique nodded once, like she was swallowing her anger for Aisha's sake. Then give me something. Give me a promise. Aisha hesitated. Monique leaned in. Promise me that if he puts his hands on you again, you call me. No pride. No excuses. Aisha's eyes dropped. Monique's voice got firmer. Promise me? Aisha swallowed and nodded. I promise. Monique's shoulders eased a little. Good. Aisha forced herself to breathe. Then her phone buzzed in her purse. One vibration. Aisha didn't check it. She didn't have to. Her body already knew who it was. Monique saw the way Aisha stiffened and followed her gaze. Is that him? Aisha whispered. Maybe. Monique stared hard. Aisha, what do you think you should do next? Comment what you think Aisha should do next. Stay quiet, or finally tell the truth. And subscribe, because this is about to get real. Angelo Vitale didn't go to church. Sunday was for quiet business. Numbers that needed to move, conversations that needed to happen without crowds, and problems that needed to be handled before they became headlines. He stood in his private office above the velvet room with the blinds half open, watching Providence move like a living map. The drizzle made the streets shine. Cars crawled. People hurried. Life looked normal from up here. That was the trick. Most storms looked like nothing from a distance. Marco walked in without knocking, a tablet in his hand and a look on his face that said he'd already confirmed what he was about to report. You were right, Marco said. Angelo didn't turn. Name. Darius Cole, Marco replied. 29, lives on the west side. Works construction when he feels like it. Known for fights. No major arrests. Just enough warnings to keep cops tired of him. Angelo's jaw tightened. No arrests. Marco shrugged. He's careful. Or he knows people. Depends. Angelo turned slowly. Does he have a record with women? Marco's eyes sharpened. Nothing official. But there are whispers. A couple exes move quick, changed addresses. Nobody wants to testify. Angelo's fingers tapped once on the desk. You think he owns her? Marco nodded. That's the pattern. Angelo stared down at the tablet, then back up. Where was he last night? Across the street, Marco said. Watching her leave. Angelo's chest went still. He saw my car. Marco nodded. He saw enough. Angelo's eyes narrowed, and he walked away. Marco's mouth twisted. He didn't walk away because he's scared. He walked away because he's planning. Angelo held Marco's gaze. Say what you mean. Marco lowered his voice. Guys like him don't like being challenged in public. He'll make a point. Not with his fists first. With control. Angelo's face stayed calm, but the air in the room changed. He won't touch her again. Marco hesitated. Boss! Angelo cut him off, voice quiet and absolute. No one harms a woman under my protection. Marco studied him carefully. You're serious. Angelo's eyes flashed once. I don't say things I'm not willing to enforce. Marco nodded slowly. Okay. Angelo walked to the desk, picked up a pen, and wrote a single word on a sticky note. Aisha. He stared at it like it was both a problem and a promise. Tell me her schedule, Angelo said. Marco blinked. Her schedule? Angelo didn't look up. When she works, when she's off, where she goes after. Marco shifted. Boss, we're crossing into personal. Angelo's voice stayed even. I'm not touching her life. I'm keeping her alive. Marco held his gaze for a long beat. Then he nodded. Understood. Angelo slid the sticky note across the desk, put 2 men on her, discreet. No intimidation. No talking to her. Marco frowned. You want her tailed without her knowing? Angelo's eyes sharpened. I want her protected without her feeling trapped. Marco stared at him, surprised by the phrasing. Angelo leaned forward slightly. If she looks over her shoulder and sees my men, she'll feel like she traded one cage for another. I'm not doing that. Marco's expression softened a fraction. Got it, Angelo added. And tell them this, if they get spotted, they back off. We don't scare her. Marco nodded again. 2 men, rotations, distance. Angelo's gaze went cold. And if Darius shows up at the club again? Marco's mouth tightened. We keep it clean. Angelo nodded. Keep it clean. Keep it quiet. Marco hesitated at the door. Boss, what if she doesn't want this? Angelo's eyes stayed on the rain-streaked window. Then we protect her until she's ready to choose. That's the difference. Marco stared at him, then slowly nodded like he was seeing something new. I'll handle it, Marco said. He stepped out. Angelo stood alone again, staring at the city like it owed him answers. His phone buzzed once. A message from the floor manager. Aisha requested next Sunday off. Angelo's jaw tightened. Not because of the day off. Because of the word requested. Like she needed permission to breathe. He turned to the window and spoke into the quiet. Not anymore, he said. Sunday night brought Aisha back to the velvet room with a knot in her stomach and a smile she had to fake. She walked in with her sleeves down, her hair neat, her face calm. She told herself it was just a shift. Just plates. Just tips. Just a paycheck. But her phone had buzzed all afternoon. She didn't open the messages. She didn't need to. Darius didn't text to check on her. He texted to remind her he existed. In the staff room, Liana leaned close. You okay today? Aisha forced a small grin. I'm good. Liana gave her a look. You got that I'm not good face. Aisha chuckled. I'm tired. Liana lowered her voice. You got a man stressing you? Aisha's laugh died. Not like that. Liana studied her for a second, then softened. Well, if you need to hide in the back for a minute, I'll cover you. Aisha blinked. Why would I need to hide? Liana shrugged. Sometimes people need a minute. That's all. Aisha nodded, throat tight. Thanks. The night moved fast. VIPs came in. The usual big names. The usual quiet men with sharper eyes than their smiles. And Angelo was there, not at the center this time. He stood near the bar talking to someone in a suit who kept laughing too hard like he wanted Angelo's approval. Angelo gave him polite attention, but his eyes drifted through the room like he was checking corners. When Aisha passed with a tray, she felt his gaze land on her, steady, not hungry. She kept moving. She told herself not to look, but her body looked anyway. Their eyes met for half a second. Angelo didn't wave, didn't call her over, didn't pull her into anything. He just nodded once. Aisha felt something in her chest loosen, just a little. Near closing, her manager approached her quietly. Aisha, Mr. Vit. Angelo wants to see you. Aisha's stomach dropped. See me? The manager shrugged like he didn't want to explain. Just outside. When you're done. Aisha's hands went cold. Did I do something? The manager shook his head quickly. No, you're good. He just said, tell her I'll be out front. Aisha swallowed hard and finished her side work with fingers that didn't feel like hers. When she clocked out, she stepped into the Providence night again. Cold air, damp street, the sound of tires on wet pavement. And there was the black car. Same clean shine, same quiet engine. Angelo stood beside it, coat on, no entourage in sight. Aisha stopped 3 steps away, unsure if she should approach. Angelo opened the passenger door without rushing her. You ready? Aisha's voice came out small. Why are you doing this? Angelo looked at her, eyes calm. Because last night you didn't look safe. Aisha's throat tightened. I am safe. Angelo's gaze flicked to her sleeves, then back to her eyes. If you were safe, you wouldn't need to say it. Aisha swallowed. She stepped closer but didn't get in yet. You can't keep doing this. Angelo's voice stayed soft. I'm not asking to keep doing anything. I'm offering you a ride. Tonight. Aisha stared at him, trying to find the trick. And if I say no? Angelo nodded once. Then you walk away, and I don't follow you. That answer hit her like a quiet shock. Aisha hesitated, then slipped into the passenger seat. Angelo closed the door gently and walked around to the driver's side. The car smelled like clean leather and something warm. Coffee, maybe. The heat was already on, pushing away the cold that clung to her coat. They drove in silence for a block, then 2. Aisha stared out the window, watching the city pass like she was floating above her own life. Angelo kept both hands on the wheel. No sudden moves. No pressure. After a minute, he spoke. You don't have to talk. Aisha's laugh came out shaky. Then why are you here? Angelo glanced at her for a second, then back to the road. Because I know what it looks like when a woman is shrinking. Aisha swallowed. You don't know my life. Angelo nodded. True. Silence again. Then Angelo said, but I know that flinch. Aisha's throat tightened. Angelo continued, voice low. When I was a kid, there was a woman in our building. Everybody called her Mrs. R. Nobody knew her first name because nobody asked. She wore long sleeves in July. Sunglasses inside the hallway. Aisha's fingers curled in her lap. Angelo's jaw flexed once. One night I heard a crash through the wall. I heard her say, I'm sorry, like it was her job. And I remember thinking, if I was older, I'd do something. Aisha whispered, Did you? Angelo's eyes stayed on the road. No. I was a kid. I was scared. I did nothing. Aisha's voice was barely there. So what happened to her? Angelo exhaled. She disappeared one day. Apartment empty. No goodbye. Nobody talked about it. Like she never existed. Aisha stared at her hands. That's horrible. Angelo's voice went quieter. I promised myself I'd never ignore that kind of fear again. Aisha didn't answer, because tears were sitting in her throat. They reached her street. Angelo parked a little down from her building, not directly in front, like he didn't want a spotlight on her door. Aisha stared at the building like it might bite. Angelo didn't move. Do you want me to drop you closer? Aisha shook her head. No, this is fine. Angelo nodded. Okay. Aisha didn't reach for the door. Her voice cracked. If you knew what he was like, you wouldn't want to be near this. Angelo finally looked at her fully. Try me. Aisha swallowed hard. He used to be different. Angelo waited. Aisha stared at the dashboard, then forced the words out. He used to be kind. Then he started calling it love when he checked my phone. Love when he told me not to wear certain things. Love when he showed up places I didn't invite him. Angelo's jaw tightened, but his tone stayed steady. And when you pushed back? Aisha's voice dropped. He said I was disrespecting him. He said I was embarrassing him. He said, if I loved him, I'd listen. Angelo's eyes darkened. That's not love, Aisha whispered. I know. The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. Aisha's breath shook. I keep thinking if I'm just nicer, if I just don't upset him, it'll go back to how it was. Angelo's voice softened. It won't. Aisha's eyes filled. I hate that you're right. Angelo lifted his hand slowly, no touching yet, like he was asking permission with his movement. Can I? Aisha hesitated, then nodded once. Angelo reached across, not to grab, but to gently hold her hand. His palm was warm, steady. Aisha's fingers trembled against his. Angelo squeezed lightly. "You don't deserve this." Aisha's tears slipped out. She wiped them fast, embarrassed. "I don't want pity." Angelo shook his head. "This isn't pity. This is respect." Aisha swallowed. "I don't even know why I'm telling you this." Angelo's thumb brushed her knuckles. "Barely. Because part of you is tired of hiding." Aisha's breath hitched. She nodded. Angelo lifted her hand slowly and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. Quick, gentle, nothing forced. Aisha froze, then exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for months. Angelo let her hand go immediately after, giving the moment space. "You're in control," he said quietly. "Always." Aisha stared at him, eyes wet, voice small. "What do I do?" Angelo's gaze held hers. "You decide what you want. And if you want out, you won't be alone." Aisha nodded slowly. She opened the car door, stepped out, then turned back, unsure. Angelo stayed seated, not following, not crowding her. "Text me when you're inside," he said. Aisha blinked. "Why?" Angelo's voice stayed calm. "So I know you're safe." Aisha hesitated, then nodded. "Okay." She walked to her door, heart pounding, unlocked it, and slipped inside. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. If you've ever had to unlearn control being called love, hit like. Somebody needs to hear this story. Comment where you're watching from, and subscribe because Darius won't stay quiet after this. Darius didn't come to the Velvet Room like a customer. He came like a man walking into his own house. It was Friday night, lying down the sidewalk, bass from inside thumping through the brick. Two doormen stood under the velvet rope with earpieces in, faces blank, scanning the street like they could smell trouble before it happened. Darius pushed past the last couple in line and headed straight for the rope. The taller doorman lifted a hand. "Private event." Darius stopped, eyes narrowing. "Private?" The doorman didn't blink. "Private?" Darius leaned in, smiling like it was a joke. "Man, move." The doorman's tone stayed polite. "Can't do that?" Darius's smile faded. "You know who I am?" The doorman's voice stayed even. "Doesn't matter." That word hit Darius wrong. He stepped closer, trying to crowd the space like his body could win the argument. "It matters," Darius said low. "Because I'm here for somebody." The doorman's gaze flicked once, quick, trained, then returned to neutral. "Nobody you're looking for is available." Darius's jaw tightened. "You don't get to tell me who's available." He reached for the rope. The doorman's hand moved, blocking him without grabbing. "Sir!" "Step back." Darius looked down at the hand, then up at the man's face. "Touch me again." And a third voice cut in, calm as a whisper. "Problem?" Marco stepped out from the side entrance like he'd been standing there the whole time. Dark coat, clean shoes, no hurry. Behind him, two of Angelo's men drifted into position, not obvious, not loud, just present. Darius recognized Marco's face from the club, the guy who stood too close to Angelo without flinching. Darius straightened, forcing a laugh. "Oh, now we got managers." Marco's eyes stayed on him. "This isn't your place." Darius tilted his head. "I'm not trying to be here for the place. I'm trying to be here for a person." Marco's mouth barely moved. "She doesn't want to see you." Darius's smile became sharp. "She tell you that?" Marco didn't answer the question. He didn't have to. Darius stepped closer, voice dropping. "Listen, man. I don't know who you think you are, but you don't get to stand between me and my girl." Marco's eyes went flat. "Your girl?" Darius's chest puffed. "Yeah, mine." Marco glanced at the doorman, then back to Darius. "You're done for tonight." Darius laughed, but it didn't sound real. "Or what?" Marco moved one step forward. "Not aggressive, certain. Or you leave on your feet." Darius's face tightened. "You threatening me?" Marco's voice stayed calm. "I'm offering you a way out that doesn't embarrass you." That word, embarrass, was the fuse. Darius swung first. He lunged, like he expected fear to make people move. But Marco didn't move. One of Angelo's men stepped in, caught Darius's wrist, turned it just enough to redirect the punch into empty air. Darius stumbled, shocked. Then the alley beside the club swallowed them. It happened fast. No dramatic shouting. No long fight, just controlled chaos. Darius tried to shove, tried to throw wild hits, tried to bite the space back with rage. But these weren't drunk guys outside a bar. These were men who treated violence like a job and didn't get emotional about it. A shoulder into Darius's chest, a sweep of his leg. His back hit the damp brick hard enough to knock the air out of him. He pushed up, furious, and Marco crouched close, voice still calm. "Stop," Marco said. Darius spat. "Who the hell are you?" Marco leaned in until Darius could see his eyes clearly. "The reason you're still breathing easy." Darius tried to surge forward again. A knee pinned his thigh. A hand pressed his shoulder back to the wall. And for the first time, Darius felt it. Not pain. Fear. Because this wasn't a fight he could win by being louder. Darius forced a laugh, shaky. "You think you're tough because you got backup?" Marco's expression didn't change. "This isn't about tough." Darius's eyes flicked past Marco, searching for who was really in charge. Then he saw it. Through the alley opening, up at the second-floor balcony window of the Velvet Room. A silhouette. Still. Watching. No panic. No rush. Just a man standing like he owned time. The streetlight caught his face for half a second. "Angelo Vitale." Darius's stomach dropped. He'd heard stories. Everybody in Providence heard stories. But stories didn't feel real until the real thing looked down at you like you were already handled. Darius swallowed, pride trying to save him. "That him?" he muttered. Marco followed his gaze, then looked back at Darius. "Yeah." Darius forced his voice steady. "Tell him to come down here." Marco's mouth twitched, almost a smile, but colder. "He doesn't have to." Darius's jaw clenched. "So he sends you to do his dirty work." Marco leaned closer. "No. He sends me to offer mercy. You don't deserve it, but tonight you're getting it." Darius stared at Angelo in the window again. Angelo didn't move. That calm was worse than yelling. Darius's breath came quick. "I didn't do anything." Marco's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie in my face." Darius tried to twist his shoulder free. The pressure increased, just enough to stop him. Marco's voice went lower. "You come near her again, you won't get an alley warning. You'll get consequences you can't talk your way out of." Darius's eyes burned with rage. "She's my girl." Marco's face stayed blank. "No, she's a person." Darius stared up at Angelo, then snapped his gaze back. "You think he cares? Men like that don't care. He wants what I got." Marco's eyes flicked. "Quick. You don't have anything worth wanting." That line hit Darius like a slap. Marco stood, nodding to his men. The pressure lifted. Darius stumbled forward, catching himself, breathing hard. He stared at them like he wanted to swing again, like his pride demanded it. But his body remembered the wall. He backed out of the alley with a stiff posture, trying to look unbothered while his heartbeat betrayed him. Before he turned away, he looked up at the balcony again and raised his chin. "This ain't over," he called. Angelo didn't respond. He just watched. And somehow that silence told Darius everything. Comment what you think Darius does next. Back off. Or come back worse. Subscribe for the next part, because Angelo's response is colder than you expect. Angelo watched the whole thing from above like a man reviewing a report. He didn't pace. He didn't slam a fist. He didn't shout orders. He stood at the balcony window with his hands in his coat pockets, eyes steady, taking in every move. How Darius swung wild. How Marco stayed controlled. How quickly Darius's confidence cracked when the alley stopped feeling like his territory. Behind Angelo, the Velvet Room kept running like a machine. Music. Laughter. Glasses clinking. People smiling like the night was clean. Marco came back upstairs 10 minutes later, adjusting his cuff as if he'd only stepped out for air. "He's gone," Marco said. Angelo nodded once. He looked up. Marco's eyes sharpened. "Yeah." Angelo's voice stayed calm. "He knows." Marco exhaled. "That's what I was hoping to avoid." Angelo finally turned from the window. Avoiding it doesn't make it disappear. Marco stepped closer. "Boss, this can start something bigger." Angelo held his gaze. It already started when he put his hands on her. Marco's jaw flexed. We kept it quiet. No phones, no crowd, alley only. Angelo nodded. "Good." Marco hesitated. "But he's proud, and now he's embarrassed." Angelo's expression stayed flat. "Let him be." Marco watched him, measuring. "You sure?" Angelo's eyes went back to the window, to the sidewalk where Darius had been standing minutes ago. Proud men make mistakes. Marco lowered his voice. He'll try to reach her. Angelo's tone didn't change. He won't reach her without going through me. Marco studied Angelo's face like he was trying to figure out where this line came from. You're personally involved now. Angelo didn't deny it. I'm personally responsible. Marco nodded slowly. Your call. Angelo's phone buzzed. A message popped up inside. Door locked. No signature. No extra words. But Angelo knew who wrote it. His chest loosened just a fraction. Marco saw the shift. That her? Angelo slid the phone into his pocket. Yeah. Marco leaned back slightly. She doesn't know about tonight. Angelo's voice stayed even. She won't. Marco frowned. Why not tell her so she understands the threat is real? Angelo met his eyes. Because fear doesn't free people. It traps them. She already has enough of that. Marco held his gaze for a beat, then nodded. So what now? Angelo's answer came without hesitation. From tonight on, I escort her. Marco's eyebrows lifted. You? Not the car. Not the driver. You. Angelo's eyes stayed hard. He came to my door looking for her. He's bold. Bold men get reckless. Marco exhaled slowly. That changes the optics. Angelo's voice stayed calm. Let it. Marco stepped closer, lowering his voice like the walls could hear. Boss, you know what people will say? Angelo's expression didn't move. People always talk. Marco's mouth tightened. And what if she doesn't want you that close? Angelo's eyes sharpened. Then she says no. And I listen. Marco nodded once, like that answer mattered. Angelo turned back to the window again. Put the tails closer. Marco frowned. You said discreet. Angelo corrected. Discreet, not distant. If Darius shows up near her building again, I want to know before she does. Marco nodded. Done. Angelo's gaze stayed on the street. And Marco? Yeah? Angelo's voice dropped. If any of my men confuse protection with control, you correct them. Immediately. Marco stared at him. Understood. Angelo didn't look away. I'm not saving her to own her. Marco's eyes softened slightly. I hear you. A beat of silence passed, filled only by music from below. Then Marco said, Darius looked at you like he wanted to prove something. Angelo's mouth tightened. Let him come. Marco nodded, but his voice stayed cautious. And when he comes? Angelo's eyes went cold. He learns the difference between love and possession. Marco turned to leave, then paused at the door. Boss. Angelo didn't turn. What? Marco's voice lowered. This isn't just business anymore. Angelo's answer was quiet. I know. Marco left. Angelo stayed by the window a moment longer, staring down at the sidewalk where Darius had stood. Then he pulled his phone back out, typed one line, and sent it. You working tomorrow? He didn't add pressure. He didn't add explanation. He just asked. Because tomorrow, Angelo wasn't letting her walk into the night alone. Like if you want justice for Aisha, because Angelo just stepped in front of a storm. Comment where you're watching from, because the next move could change everything. Aisha's phone buzzed the next afternoon while she was folding laundry on her bed. You working tomorrow? No emoji, no extra words. Just that. Angelo. Aisha stared at the screen like it might burn her. She read it twice, then a third time, trying to find the angle, trying to find the price attached. She didn't see one. She typed, yes, night shift, then hesitated and added, why? His reply came fast. I'm driving you. Aisha's chest tightened. She texted back immediately. You don't have to do that. A pause. Then I want to, but you decide. Aisha stared at those words longer than she should have. But you decide. She typed, okay, but we need rules. His reply. Good. Tell me the rules. That made her laugh once, small, surprised like her body couldn't help it. The next night, when her shift ended, Angelo was there, not in the shadows, not hiding, parked a little down the street like last time, but visible enough that she didn't have to guess. Aisha stepped outside with her coat zipped to her chin, eyes scanning the sidewalk out of habit. No, Darius, but her body still braced like he could appear from the dark. Angelo opened the passenger door and waited. No rushing, no hurry up, just patience. Aisha slid in, exhaled, and hugged her arms around herself. Angelo got in and started the car. The heater kicked on. They drove for a minute in silence. Aisha watched the wet streets pass. Then she spoke before fear could stop her. I don't want you doing anything because you feel sorry for me. Angelo's eyes stayed on the road. Okay, Aisha blinked. She expected pushback. Angelo added, I'm not doing this out of pity. Aisha swallowed. Then why? Angelo's voice stayed steady. Because I can. Aisha frowned. That's not an answer. Angelo glanced at her for half a second. It is. Most people see a problem and say, somebody should help. Then they look away. I'm not looking away. Aisha stared out the window. That sounds dangerous. It is, Angelo said simply. But so is what you're living with. Aisha's throat tightened. She nodded once, then forced herself to keep going. So here are the rules. Angelo's tone stayed calm. I'm listening. Aisha took a breath. Rule 1. No telling me what to do. Not how to dress, not who to talk to, not where to go. Angelo nodded once. Agreed. Aisha continued, voice getting steadier as she heard herself say it. Rule 2. If I say stop, you stop. No questions. No arguments. Angelo's answer came instantly. Always? Aisha swallowed. Rule 3. You don't make decisions about my life without me. Angelo's grip on the wheel tightened slightly, then eased. Understood. Aisha looked at him. And Rule 4. You don't use this to hold anything over my head later. Angelo's jaw flexed once. I won't. Aisha studied his face. Promise. Angelo met her eyes for a moment, then looked back to the road. I don't play with promises. Aisha's chest loosened, then tightened again. She whispered, Protection doesn't mean control. Angelo nodded like he'd been waiting for her to say it. You're right. Aisha blinked, surprised again. That's it? You're not going to argue? Angelo's mouth twitched slightly. I don't argue with truth. Aisha let out a shaky laugh. Most men do. Angelo's voice dropped. Most men are insecure. Aisha's laugh faded. The silence returned, but it wasn't empty. It was full of things she hadn't said yet. Finally, she asked, Why do you care so much? Angelo didn't answer right away. The car rolled through a green light, tires whispering on wet pavement. Then he said, Because I spent most of my life convincing myself violence was the only way to keep order. Aisha's eyes flicked to him. And now? Angelo's voice stayed quiet. Now I'm trying to find a purpose that doesn't make me hate myself later. Aisha swallowed. That's honest. Angelo nodded once. It's easier to be honest with you than with anybody else. Aisha stared at her hands. I want a normal life. Angelo glanced at her. Tell me what normal looks like. Aisha took a breath, letting herself say it out loud. School. I want to finish. I want to stop dropping classes because my life keeps catching fire. Angelo's jaw tightened at the image, but his voice stayed calm. What are you studying? Social work, Aisha said softly. I want to help girls who feel stuck. Angelo nodded like that made sense. Of course you do, Aisha continued, voice warming with hope. I want to volunteer at church again. I used to work with the youth group. I stopped because I didn't want anyone asking questions. Angelo's eyes stayed steady. You can go back. Aisha's laugh was bitter. It's not that simple. Angelo's voice lowered. Then we make it simple. Aisha turned to him. We? Angelo didn't flinch. If you want? That phrase again. If you want. Aisha's chest tightened. And what do you want? Angelo's grip on the wheel shifted, like the answer mattered more than he wanted it to. I want... He paused. I want to be the kind of man who can sit in silence and not feel like I'm losing control. Aisha stared. That's what you want. Angelo glanced at her. It sounds small. It isn't. Aisha nodded slowly. No, it's not. They reached her street. Angelo parked the same way, close enough to be safe, far enough to avoid attention. Aisha didn't move to get out right away. Angelo didn't rush her. Aisha finally said, If you ever start acting like you own me, Angelo's voice cut in gently. I won't. Aisha held his gaze. How do you know? Angelo's expression turned serious. Because the moment you feel trapped with me, I've become the thing I hate. Aisha's throat tightened. Angelo lifted his hand slowly, stopping halfway, letting her decide. Can I? Aisha hesitated, then placed her hand in his. Angelo squeezed, light, steady. Aisha whispered, I'm scared. Angelo nodded. I know. Aisha swallowed. And I still don't know if I can get out. Angelo's voice stayed calm. You can. Aisha looked at him. How are you so sure? Angelo's eyes didn't move. Because I'm here, and because you just made boundaries out loud. That's not a woman who's done. That's a woman waking up. Aisha's eyes burned. She pulled her hand back gently, then opened the door. Before she stepped out, she looked at him one more time. Good night, Angelo. Angelo nodded. Good night, Aisha. Text me when you're inside. Aisha stepped into the night, heart pounding. And somewhere out there, she could feel it. The fact that Darius wasn't done. Not even close. Comment what you think Angelo should do next. Stay quiet, or confront Darius head on. Subscribe for the next part, because Darius is about to strike back. Angelo was still awake when the call came. It wasn't even midnight. The Velvet Room was in full swing downstairs. Laughter, music, money moving from hand to hand like it was harmless. Angelo stood in his office above it, jacket off, sleeves rolled, reviewing numbers with Marco when Marco's burner buzzed. Marco checked the screen, and the look on his face sharpened into something hard. Talk, Angelo said. Marco answered. Yeah, slow down. Where? A pause. Marco's jaw clenched. Is he breathing? Marco asked. Another pause. Marco ended the call and looked at Angelo. Truck. Angelo didn't move. Which one? The Route 1 run, Marco said. The one with the liquor and the imported cases. Driver's name is Reggie. Angelo's eyes narrowed. Reggie's solid. He got hit, Marco replied. Not dead, but hurt. Angelo's voice stayed calm. How bad? Marco exhaled like he hated saying it. He's in an ambulance. Broken arm. Head cut up. They jumped him when he pulled off for a minute. Angelo's face stayed still, but the room went cold. And the cargo? Marco swallowed. They torched it. Angelo's gaze locked on Marco. All of it. Enough to make a point, Marco said. Enough to make people talk. Angelo stared past him, through the glass, down at the club floor like he could already hear the rumors forming. A hit on Route 1 wasn't random. It was a message. Marco's phone buzzed again. Another call. He ignored it. His eyes were on Angelo now, waiting. Angelo finally spoke. Who did it? Marco didn't hesitate. Darius. Angelo's expression didn't change, but the air shifted. You're sure? Marco nodded. We got eyes out there. One of our guys saw him. Hood up, but it was him. He wanted to be seen. Angelo took one slow breath. He's proud. Marco's voice sharpened. He's stupid. The door opened without a knock. Two more of Angelo's men stepped in. Tony and Sal, faces tight, voices already heated. Tony spoke first. Boss, say the word. Sal cut in, angry. They burned our shipment. On a main road. They want everybody to know they can touch us. Marco held up a hand. Not here. Keep your voices down. Tony ignored him. Reggie's in the back of an ambulance, man. Sal's eyes flashed. We can find Darius tonight. Tony leaned forward. We should. Right now. We don't wait. Angelo's eyes lifted slowly to them. Calm. Quiet. They stopped talking like someone pulled a plug. Angelo asked, Where is Reggie now? Marco answered, Rhode Island Hospital. EMS took him straight there. Angelo nodded once. Make sure his family's covered. Tonight? Tony blinked. Boss, Angelo's gaze sharpened. Tonight. Don't make me repeat myself. Tony's anger shifted into focus. Yes, boss. Sal tried again. What about Darius? Angelo didn't answer right away. He walked to the window, looked down at the club again. Smiling faces. Careless laughter. Aisha moving through the room with a tray like she was trying to be invisible. Angelo's jaw flexed. He turned back. Darius wants a reaction. Tony scoffed. He's gonna get one. Sal nodded. We respond hard. People already wondering if we're slipping. Marco glanced at Angelo. Careful. This is a big move, boss. Tony stepped closer. If you don't respond, your name gets soft. Angelo's eyes turned colder. My name doesn't get soft. Sal's voice rose. Then prove it. Angelo's gaze snapped to him. Sal swallowed and stepped back. Angelo's voice stayed low. Watch your tone. Marco cut in quickly. He's not wrong about one thing. The street watches, Tony added, and the club watches. Angelo's eyes flicked again to Aisha below. His phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. One line, you can't protect her forever. Angelo stared at it, then typed nothing back. Marco noticed. What is it? Angelo slid the phone away. Nothing that changes the plan, Tony demanded. So what's the plan? Before Angelo could answer, the office door opened again. Aisha stood there, not in her waitress uniform. She had her coat on, hair slightly damp like she'd stepped outside for air and come back in. Her eyes were wide, breathing shallow. Everyone in the room froze. Angelo's voice softened by 1 degree. Aisha? Aisha's gaze flicked to Tony and Sal, then to Marco, then landed on Angelo. What happened? She asked. I heard somebody saying Route 1 and burned and... Marco stepped toward the door. Aisha, this isn't... Angelo lifted a hand. Marco stopped. Aisha took a half step in, like her legs moved before her brain could decide. Is this because of me? Tony muttered. Here we go. Angelo's head turned slightly. Tony, shut up. Aisha's voice cracked. Angelo, please. If he did something, if Darius did something, it's because... Angelo walked toward her slowly. No rush. No big movements. Aisha? He said gently. Breathe. Aisha shook her head fast, tears pushing up like they'd been waiting all day. No, I can't do that right now. Just tell me, is someone hurt? Angelo held her gaze. One of my drivers got jumped. Aisha's mouth opened. Oh my God, he's alive, Angelo added immediately. He's going to recover. Aisha exhaled like she'd been holding her breath underwater. Then, panic came back stronger. He did that because I didn't answer his calls. Because I got in your car. Because he saw you. Angelo stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his presence without feeling trapped. I'm not blaming you, Angelo said. Aisha swallowed. But it is connected. Angelo didn't lie. Yes, Aisha's eyes flashed with guilt. Then it's my fault. Angelo's voice stayed calm but firmer. No, Aisha's tears spilled. Angelo, people got hurt. They burned your stuff. Angelo's gaze held hers. He chose to do that. Aisha's shoulders shook. But if I just go back to him, he'll stop. Marco's head snapped toward her. Don't say that, Tony muttered. She's gonna run right back to the problem. Angelo's eyes cut to Tony like a blade. Tony fell silent. Angelo turned back to Aisha. Listen to me. You going back doesn't fix him. It just teaches him that fear works. Aisha wiped her face hard. You don't know what he'll do if he thinks I chose you. Angelo's jaw tightened. I know exactly what men like him do. Aisha's voice dropped. Then why are you doing this? The question wasn't anger. It was fear. Angelo didn't answer with ego. He answered with truth. Because I'm not letting him build a life on your fear, Angelo said. And I'm not letting him use you like a leash. Aisha's breath hitched. Use me? Marco shifted. His eyes moved from Aisha to Angelo, like he'd been thinking something he didn't want to say out loud. Angelo noticed. Marco? Marco hesitated. Boss. Angelo's voice sharpened slightly. Talk! Marco glanced at Tony and Sal. You two, outside. Tony opened his mouth. Angelo's gaze stopped him. Tony shut it, grabbed Sal's sleeve, and they both left the office. The door clicked shut. Silence. Aisha looked between them. What is going on? Marco exhaled slowly. We pulled footage from the street cams near Route 1. Not just the attack. Aisha blinked. What do you mean, not just... Marco's voice got tighter. We saw who met Darius after. Aisha's stomach dropped. He met someone? Angelo's eyes narrowed. Who? Marco reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, tapped, then held it out to Angelo. A paused frame. A man in a long coat, expensive shoes, clean haircut. Not street. Not a brawler. The type who smiled in boardrooms and shook hands at fundraisers. Marco said the name like he hated it. Calvin Hargrove? Aisha frowned. I don't know who that is. Marco's eyes didn't leave Angelo. That's because he's legit. On paper. Angelo stared at the image. Marco continued. He's a broker, a fixer, middleman. He makes problems disappear for the right people. Aisha's voice turned small. So what does he have to do with Darius? Angelo's expression sharpened. Everything. Aisha looked lost. I don't understand. Marco spoke carefully, like he was placing glass on a table. Darius isn't acting alone. Aisha's lips parted. But he hates you. He's jealous. Angelo's voice was quiet. Jealousy doesn't burn a shipment on Route 1. Jealousy doesn't choose a driver. Jealousy doesn't plan. Aisha stared. So you think he's being told? Marco nodded once. Pressured, paid, maybe both. Aisha shook her head fast. No, Darius doesn't take orders. Angelo looked at her. Everybody takes orders from something. Pride, money, fear. Aisha's breath started coming faster again. Why would anyone want you pulled into this? Why would they? Angelo's eyes stayed on the frozen image of Calvin Hargrove. Because Hargrove wants me in the open. Aisha blinked. In the open? Marco explained. Angelo keeps things quiet. Controlled, no headlines, no public mess. That makes it hard for certain people to move against him. Aisha whispered. So they want you to react. Angelo nodded slowly. They want me loud. Aisha's hands shook. But what does that have to do with me? Marco hesitated again. Angelo's voice sharpened. Say it. Marco turned to Aisha. Aisha, I need you to be honest with me. Has Darius ever asked you questions about the Velvet Room? Aisha froze. Angelo watched her face change. Not confusion, not surprise. Recognition. Aisha whispered, He asked things. Marco pressed gently. What things? Aisha swallowed, shame rising like heat. He'd ask who was there. He'd ask if you were there. He'd ask what time you left. He'd ask who you talked to. Angelo's jaw tightened. Aisha rushed, but I didn't tell him anything important. I didn't. Marco's voice stayed steady. Did he ever ask about shipments? Aisha's eyes widened. How did you? Angelo's gaze locked on her. Aisha's voice cracked. He asked once. About the guys carrying boxes through the back. He said it was weird for a club. Angelo didn't blink. And what did you say? Aisha shook her head fast. Nothing. I said I didn't know. Because I don't. I don't know what you do. I'm just... Angelo stepped closer. Not crowding, but grounding her. Aisha, he said softly. Listen. You didn't do anything wrong by not knowing. Aisha stared at him, terrified. So the bruises. Marco's jaw tightened. They weren't just because he's angry. Aisha's face drained. He was trying to... Train me! Angelo's eyes darkened. Aisha's voice turned into a whisper. He wanted me scared enough to answer. Scared enough to pay attention. To bring back information. Angelo's mouth tightened. Yes. Aisha pressed her palm to her mouth like she might be sick. Oh my God. Angelo's voice stayed controlled. That's why he escalated so fast. That's why he showed up outside the club. That's why he said he had eyes on you. Aisha's eyes filled again. So when he told me he had eyes on me... Angelo nodded once. It wasn't just jealousy. It was surveillance. Aisha's knees weakened slightly. She grabbed the edge of Angelo's desk. Angelo moved closer, ready to steady her, but he didn't touch without permission. His voice stayed calm. Breathe. You're here. You're safe. Aisha shook her head, panicked. No, I'm not safe. If Hargrove is involved, that means this is bigger than Darius. Marco's voice was low. It is... Aisha looked at Angelo like she was finally seeing the size of the storm around him. So what happens now? Tony and Sal were outside waiting for an answer to that question too. Angelo stared at the paused image of Hargrove again. He understood the trap. If he went brutal, the city would whisper his name louder. Hargrove would get his headline without ever stepping into the dirt. If he did nothing, his people would doubt him. The streets would test him. Darius would feel bold. And in the middle of it all was Aisha, already carrying enough fear without being turned into a chess piece. Angelo took a slow breath. This wasn't one war anymore. It was two. One outside, men trying to pull him into the open. One inside, his own code, the part of him that wanted to answer fire with fire, and the part of him that refused to become another man who used fear as a tool. Aisha's voice trembled. Tell me what to do. Angelo looked at her immediately. No. Aisha blinked. What? Angelo's tone softened. I'm not telling you what to do. Aisha's eyes flashed with frustration and fear. But I don't know what's safe. Angelo held her gaze. Then we talk. You tell me what you want, and I tell you what the risks are. You choose. Aisha swallowed, tears slipping again. I want out. Angelo nodded. Okay. Aisha's voice cracked. But if I leave, he'll come for me, Marco said quietly. He already is. Aisha looked at Angelo, desperate. So what do we do? Angelo's eyes stayed steady. We make him miss. Aisha's breath caught. What does that mean? Angelo glanced at Marco. Bring me everything you have on Hargrove. Every connection, every pressure point. Marco nodded. Already on it. Angelo turned back to Aisha. And you, tonight you don't go home alone. Aisha's shoulders tightened. Angelo. He lifted a hand, gentle, not as a command. As a question, do you want that? Aisha hesitated, then nodded once, small. Yes. Angelo's voice stayed quiet. Good. Aisha wiped her face, trying to steady herself. And what about Reggie? Angelo's jaw tightened. He'll be taken care of. Aisha whispered, I'm sorry. Angelo shook his head once. Save your sorry for the men who put you through this. Aisha's chest shook with a silent sob. Angelo leaned closer, voice low enough that it felt like a shield. Aisha, look at me. She did. Angelo's eyes held hers. You're not a tool. You're not bait. You're not a message. Aisha swallowed. Then why does it feel like everyone is using me? Angelo's voice turned colder. Not at her, but at the world around them. Because men like Darius think fear is a leash, and men like Hargrove think people are numbers. Aisha whispered, And you? Angelo didn't flinch. I think you're free, even if you don't feel like it yet. Aisha stared at him, like she wanted to believe that with her whole life. Marco's phone buzzed. He checked it, then looked up. Boss? Tony just texted. Reggie's cousin said something. Angelo's gaze sharpened. What? Marco read. Reggie said Darius wasn't alone. There was another car, black sedan, no plates. The guy who didn't fight. Just watched. Angelo's jaw tightened. Hargrove. Marco nodded. Looks like it. Aisha's eyes widened. So he was there, when they hurt him. Angelo's voice dropped. Yeah. Aisha's breathing turned shallow again. That means he'll do more. Angelo stared at the photo on Marco's phone, then at Aisha. He knew what was coming. He also knew the next move couldn't be made from rage, because rage was exactly what they wanted. Angelo stepped closer to Aisha, careful, giving her space even while the world tried to close in. You want it out, he said softly. We're going to get you out. Aisha whispered. How? Angelo's eyes went cold. By making the people pulling strings regret touching you at all. Aisha's lips trembled. I'm scared. Angelo nodded once. I know. Then he added, quieter, but you're not stuck. And in that moment, Aisha realized the truth that made her stomach drop. This wasn't just her boyfriend losing control. This was a plan. And she had been standing inside it without knowing. Comment free if you think Aisha deserves her life back, because the next move she makes changes everything. Aisha didn't sleep. Not really. She sat on Angelo's office couch with a cup of tea she wasn't drinking, staring at the city through the window like the drizzle could wash her life clean if she watched long enough. Marco had stepped out to make calls. The club noise below was lower now, muffled by walls and distance. Angelo stayed a few feet away, giving her space like it mattered. Because it did. Aisha finally spoke, voice rough. So I was never just a girlfriend to him. Angelo's eyes stayed on her. You were never just anything. Aisha let out a tight laugh that didn't hold humor. He was training me. That's what it was. Training. Angelo didn't correct her language. He didn't soften it. He just nodded once. Yes. Aisha's fingers trembled around the mug, and I still told myself it was love. I still defended him. Her eyes flicked up, shame flashing across her face. I sound so stupid. Angelo's voice stayed calm. You sound like someone who was surviving. Aisha shook her head quickly. No, I sound like someone who helped him. Every time I lied for him, every time I said I'm fine, I made it easier for him. Angelo took one slow step closer, then stopped, waiting. What do you want right now? Aisha swallowed. I want out. Angelo nodded. Okay. Aisha's eyes narrowed slightly, frustration bleeding through fear. No, I want out for real. Not for a weekend. Not for a day where he's calm. I want to end it. Angelo's jaw tightened. Then we'll do it. Aisha held up a hand. But you're not going to do it for me. Angelo paused. Aisha's voice steadied, stronger now. I'm not doing that thing where a man saves me, and then I owe him my life. Angelo's eyes softened. You don't owe me anything. Aisha leaned forward, elbows on her knees. I need to say this clearly. If there's a plan, I need to choose it. I won't be bait unless I agree. Angelo stared at her for a beat, something like respect tightening his expression. Good. Aisha blinked. Good. Angelo nodded once. That's exactly what I want from you. Choice. Aisha exhaled shakily. Then here's my choice. I'm not going back to him, not to calm him down, not to make him stop. Angelo's voice dropped. That's smart. Aisha's eyes shined. And I'm not hiding anymore. The words surprised even her. She put the mug down like she needed both hands free to hold on to what she was saying. I've been embarrassed, she admitted. I've been scared people would think I'm weak, or think I'm the kind of woman who stays with a man like that. Angelo's gaze stayed steady. You're not weak. Aisha swallowed, pushing through it anyway. I want Monique here. Angelo nodded. We can call her. Aisha's voice got firmer. No, I'm calling her. Angelo didn't move. Okay. Aisha pulled out her phone. Her thumb hovered over Monique's name like it weighed 100 pounds. Then she hit call. Monique picked up on the second ring. Aisha, you okay? Aisha's throat tightened. No! A beat of silence. Monique's voice sharpened immediately. Where are you? Aisha looked at Angelo, then back to the phone. I'm safe, but I need you. Monique didn't ask questions. Location. Aisha gave it. Monique's response was instant. I'm coming. Aisha's eyes filled again. Bring someone. Monique didn't hesitate. I'm bringing Deacon James and my cousin Tasha. We'll be there in 15, Aisha whispered. Thank you. Monique's voice softened just enough to sound like love. You don't have to thank me. You should have called me sooner, but we're here now. Aisha ended the call and stared at her phone like she couldn't believe she'd done it. Angelo spoke quietly. You did a hard thing. Aisha wiped her face fast. I haven't even started. Marco returned, stepping in with that controlled urgency that meant the night was moving whether anyone was ready or not. Boss, Marco said. Then he noticed Aisha's phone in her hand, her posture different. You called her? Aisha nodded. Monique's coming. Marco glanced at Angelo. Angelo nodded once. Marco didn't argue. That alone told Aisha how serious this was. 15 minutes later, the office door opened again. Monique walked in first, eyes scanning the room like she was ready to swing on anything that looked wrong. Deacon James followed. Older man, calm eyes, steady presence. And Tasha, tall, athletic, jaw set like she'd already decided Darius wasn't walking away from this. Monique's gaze locked on Aisha and her face broke, half relief, half anger. Baby, Monique said, crossing the room fast. Aisha stood, and Monique wrapped her in a hug so tight it almost hurt. Aisha clung back like she'd been holding herself together with tape. Monique pulled away just enough to look her in the eyes. Tell me the truth. Aisha's voice shook. He's worse than I told you. Monique's eyes flashed. I knew it. Aisha took a breath. I've been covering for him. I've been lying. I've been acting like it's not what it is. Deacon James stepped forward slowly. Daughter, you're safe to speak here. Aisha nodded, tears slipping. He hit me. He grabbed me. She stopped, forced herself to breathe. And he's been trying to use me. Asking questions about the club. Watching me. Monique's hands balled into fists. I'm going to... Aisha lifted a hand, stopping her. No. Listen. I'm done protecting him. The words came out stronger this time. I'm done protecting him with my silence. Monique stared at her, eyes wet. Okay. Aisha looked at Angelo, then at Marco, then back to Monique. There's a bigger man involved. A man named Calvin Hargrove. Tasha's eyes narrowed. That name is Money. Marco nodded once. He is... Monique looked between them. What does that mean? Angelo spoke gently, but firm. It means Darius isn't just acting on jealousy. Someone's pushing him. Monique's face tightened. So what's the plan? Aisha inhaled, shoulders squaring like she was stepping into herself. The plan is... I disappear on purpose. But only if I choose it. Angelo's eyes stayed on her. You don't have to... Aisha shook her head. I do, because if I keep hiding, he keeps controlling the story. He keeps showing up where he wants, saying whatever he wants. Monique's voice was sharp. You're not going anywhere alone. Aisha nodded. I know. That's why you're here. Deacon James folded his hands. What do you need from us? Aisha's voice steadied. I need a safe place that Darius doesn't know. I need support. I need people who will not talk. And I need to stop being ashamed. Monique nodded hard. You got all of that. Tasha stepped forward. My aunt has a place in Pawtucket. Darius won't check there. Aisha blinked. Pawtucket? Tasha nodded. Quiet street. No drama. We can rotate. Keep you covered. Marco glanced at Angelo. Angelo nodded slightly. That works. Monique's eyes narrowed at Angelo. And you, what's your part in this? Angelo met her gaze without flinching. My part is making sure Darius can't reach her, and making sure the man behind him regrets using her. Monique stared at him, measuring. You going to control her too? Aisha's chest tightened at the question, but Angelo answered before she could. No, Angelo said calmly. She sets the boundaries. I follow them. Monique held his eyes for a long moment, then nodded once. Good, because if she says stop, you stop. Angelo nodded. Always. Aisha exhaled, relief and fear mixing together. Then I'm doing it. Deacon James's voice was low and steady. We'll pray with you. We'll move with you. But you must stay firm. Aisha nodded, tears in her eyes. I will. Monique squeezed her hand, and when he calls, Aisha's jaw tightened. I don't answer. Monique's voice softened. And when he shows up? Aisha swallowed. I don't open the door. Angelo's eyes hardened slightly, and if he tries to force it, he meets me. Aisha looked at Angelo. But you don't decide this alone. Angelo nodded once. You decide. Aisha took a breath, then said the words like a line in the sand. Okay, then I decide. I'm leaving tonight. Comment what you think Aisha should do next. Go fully no contact, or send one final message to end it. Subscribe to the next part because Darius is about to rewrite the story. Darius didn't hear the truth. He heard the rumor. That was how it always worked. The street never waited for proof. It fed on whispers and turned them into facts by morning. By Saturday afternoon, Darius was in the back room of a small bar on the west side, peeling paint, loud TV, stale smoke stuck in the walls. 3 guys sat around him, all muscles and ego. The kind of men who laughed at consequences until consequences showed up with a name. Darius paced like a man trying to walk off humiliation. They jumped me, he said, voice sharp. Outside that club. One of the men, Trey, snorted. You swung first? Darius shot him a look. I didn't swing at nobody. They touched me first. Another guy, Malik, leaned back. So who touched you? Darius's jaw flexed. Angelo Vitale's people. The room went a little quieter at that name. Not fear, just calculation. A third man, Rico, frowned. Why you in his lane? Darius slammed his palm on the table. Because he in mine. Trey lifted his eyebrows. You talking about that waitress? Darius's eyes flashed. That's my girl. Malik's expression tightened. If she your girl, why she working in his club? Darius pointed. Exactly. That's what I've been saying. Rico rubbed his jaw. Word is you got checked in an alley. Darius's face tightened. Word is they caught me off guard. Trey smirked. And you just let that ride? Darius leaned forward, voice dropping. No, I'm building. Malik's eyes narrowed. Building what? Darius's smile turned cold. Numbers? Pressure? Rico frowned. Pressure on Angelo? In Providence? Darius's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, then flipped it face down without answering. Trey noticed. That her? Darius's jaw tightened. She's ignoring me. Malik leaned forward. Maybe she doesn't want you. Darius's eyes snapped. She wants me. She just confused. Rico's voice was low, or scared. Darius's nostrils flared. She got no reason to be scared. The lie hung in the room. Trey laughed once. Whatever it is, you need a story. Because right now, people think you got punked. Darius's jaw clenched. So we changed the story. Malik crossed his arms. How? Darius leaned in, eyes bright with the kind of anger that likes to dress itself up as logic. Angelo attacked me first. Rico blinked. He attacked you? Darius nodded. Yeah, his men grabbed me. I was outside, didn't do nothing. They jumped me. Trey smirked. That's the story? Darius's eyes narrowed. That's the truth. Malik shook his head slowly. You want to start a fight with Angelo's name attached? Darius's voice turned sharp. I don't want to fight. I want respect. Rico stared at him. Respect from who? Darius slammed his palm again. From everybody. From her. From the street. Trey leaned back, grin widening. So, what you want us to do? Darius's eyes cut across them. I want you to roll with me. We show up. We make him feel it. Malik's mouth tightened. Show up where? Darius smiled like the answer was obvious. Velvet room. Rico hesitated. And then what? You gonna shoot it up? Darius glared. Don't say stupid stuff. I'm not trying to go to prison. Trey laughed. So what's the plan then? Darius leaned forward, voice low and confident. We walk in deep. We force a scene. We make the whole place watch him back down. Malik shook his head. He won't. Darius's smile thinned. Then he bleeds reputation. Either way, I win. Across town, Angelo sat in a quiet industrial garage that looked empty from the outside and stayed invisible for a reason. Inside, it was clean. Concrete floor, bright overhead lights, racks of locked cases. Not chaos. Order. Marco stood over a table with a printed map of Providence and 2 phones open. One showing camera angles near the Velvet Room. Another listing known associates tied to Calvin Hargrove's circle. Tony and Sal were there too, still angry about Route 1, still hungry for payback. Tony spoke first. We should take Darius off the board. Sal nodded. End it. Angelo didn't look up from the map. No. Tony's face tightened. Boss, he hit our truck. Angelo's voice stayed calm. And he wants me to hit back the way he expects. Sal leaned forward. So we just let him keep swinging? Angelo lifted his eyes slowly. We don't let him do anything. We control the outcome. Marco tapped the map. Darius is gathering people, Tony scoffed. Let him gather. We can take them all. Angelo's gaze sharpened. We are not doing a bloodbath. Tony's eyes flashed. Then what are we doing? Angelo pointed at the map with a pen. Precision. Sal frowned. Precision? Angelo nodded. We remove the threat without turning the city into a rumor mill. No bodies. No headlines. No chaos, Marco added. We document his moves. We record him trying to force entry. We catch his people with weapons. We turn their bold move into their cage. Tony frowned. That sounds like police stuff. Angelo's eyes went cold. It's strategy. Sal leaned back. What about Hargrove? Marco's mouth tightened. Hargrove wants Angelo loud. He wants a public mess he can sell to the people above him. Angelo nodded. So we don't give him that. We make him watch his plan fail quietly. Tony shook his head. Boss, you calling cops? Angelo stared at him. If I need to, but not because I'm scared. Because it's clean. Sal's jaw flexed. And Darius? Angelo leaned forward slightly. We disarm him. We humiliate him without killing him. We remove his ability to touch Aisha. Marco pointed to the security layout. We set non-lethal teams outside the club. We place cameras. We station men who can restrain fast. No fists unless necessary. No weapons drawn unless they draw first. Tony muttered. He's gonna feel it, though. Angelo's eyes narrowed. He will, just not the way you want. A phone buzzed. Marco checked it. Aisha moved. Angelo's posture shifted immediately. Where? Marco spoke carefully. Pawtucket. Tasha's aunt's place. Angelo nodded once. Good. Keep it quiet. Tony frowned. She running? Angelo's voice was firm. She's choosing. Sal exhaled. Darius finds out, he'll lose his mind. Angelo nodded. Let him. Marco hesitated. Boss, he's telling people you attacked him first. Angelo's mouth tightened slightly. Of course he is. Tony's voice rose. That can't stand. Angelo's gaze cut to him. Tony stopped. Angelo spoke calmly. If he wants to lie, we let him lie in public. Then we bury him with the truth. Marco nodded. We can pull street cams. We can pull our own footage. We can show he came looking for her. Angelo nodded once. And we can show he escalated. Tony leaned in. So what's the move when he comes to the club? Angelo's eyes went cold. We let him step into a box he can't punch his way out of. Marco added, no surprises for Aisha. She stays out. She stays covered. Angelo nodded. She's not bait. Tony looked annoyed. So we just protect her and play chess. Angelo stared at him. Yes. Sal's voice lowered. And if Darius gets someone hurt again? Angelo's jaw tightened. Then he loses the option of mercy. Marco watched Angelo closely. You sure you can keep your men calm? Angelo's voice turned iron. They'll be calm, Tony smirked. Because you'll make them. Angelo didn't deny it. He looked at the map again, then at Marco. Put eyes on that west side bar. If Darius moves, I want to know before he hits the sidewalk. Marco nodded. Already done. Angelo's phone buzzed. A message from Aisha. I'm at Monique's friend's place. I'm safe. I did it. Angelo stared at the screen for a beat. Then he typed back. Proud of you. Stay hidden. He slid the phone away, expression tightening into focus. Because now that Aisha had chosen herself, Darius would feel it like a slap. And men like Darius didn't handle losing control quietly. The docks on the Providence side looked dead after midnight. Rows of stacked containers, rusted chain link, and puddles reflecting the security lights like broken mirrors. No crowds, no cameras that mattered. Just whined off the water and the kind of quiet that made every footstep feel like a confession. Darius chose this place because he thought it made him a man. Angelo came because he refused to let Darius pick the rules. 2 black SUVs rolled in first, slow and controlled, headlights cutting across the yard. Angelo stepped out alone, coat buttoned, hands empty. Marco and 2 men stayed a few paces back, spaced out like shadows that didn't need to announce themselves. Across the yard, Darius arrived with numbers. 6 guys in hoodies and heavy jackets. A couple of them walked with that fake swagger people use when they're scared. One held his waistband like he wanted everyone to know he had something tucked there. Another kept looking over his shoulder like he expected the ocean to snitch. Darius stepped forward, chin up, eyes bright with that same anger he always called love. There he is, Darius said loud, forcing the sound to fill the yard. Mr. Big Club. Angelo didn't respond right away. He just watched the way Darius's crew shifted. The way their eyes kept darting. The way none of them looked ready for a real consequence. Marco murmured, We're set. Angelo nodded once, barely. Darius pointed at Angelo like he was on the stage. You think you can take my woman and hide her? Angelo's expression didn't change. She's not your woman. Darius laughed, sharp and ugly. Oh, so you're claiming her now? Angelo took one slow step forward. No, I'm respecting her. Darius's face twisted. Respect? Man, stop talking like you're a priest. She belongs to me. That line hit the yard like a match. One of Darius's guys laughed nervously, like he wanted to keep the mood light. Another cracked his knuckles like he wanted a fight to hurry up and happen so he could stop thinking. Angelo's voice stayed calm, but it carried. Say that again. Darius smiled like he'd won something. She belongs to me. Angelo didn't raise his voice. He didn't step closer. He just spoke the sentence that cut through everything. She's not property. Darius's smile faltered for half a second, then snapped back. Man, you don't know her. You don't know what we got. Angelo's eyes narrowed. I know what you did. Darius's gaze flicked. Prove it. Angelo didn't take the bait. He turned his head slightly, eyes on Darius. Voice aimed like a blade. Aisha chose to leave you, Angelo said. That's the truth you can't swallow. Darius's jaw clenched. She didn't choose nothing. She's scared. She's confused. Angelo nodded once. Yeah, she was scared. Darius stepped forward, shoulders tense. Where is she? Angelo's voice stayed flat. Safe. Darius's eyes flashed. Bring her. Angelo didn't move. No, one of Darius's guys muttered. Yo, we really doing this? Another said. He ain't alone, bro. Look around. Darius snapped at them without looking back. Shut up. Then Darius leaned forward again, trying to make his voice sound reasonable. Angelo, I'm going to tell you one time. You give her back, and this ends. Angelo's face stayed still. You don't get to end what you started. Darius's patience cracked. He turned to his crew. All right, that was the signal. 2 men reached for their waistbands. Another stepped sideways, angling like he'd practiced this in a mirror. Marco's hand lifted slightly, small, subtle. And then the night changed. 3 sharp pops cracked through the air fast, spaced, controlled, not wild, not panicked. Metal clanged. One weapon spun out of a man's grip and skidded across wet concrete. Another guy yelped and jumped back, shaking his hand like he'd been stung. A third froze, staring at the ground where his confidence had just landed. Nobody was bleeding. Nobody was down. But the message landed hard. You are not in control here. Darius's crew scrambled instantly, 2 backing up, one ducking behind a container, another raising both hands without thinking. "What the?" one of them shouted, voice breaking. Darius whipped his head around, eyes wide. "What happened?" Marco's voice cut through the panic. "Drop it and walk away." Darius's men looked at each other, fear spreading like a rumor. Darius tried to force his voice steady. "Y'all good. Y'all good." "He ain't." Another pop hit the ground near a fourth guy's feet, close enough to make him stumble back with a curse. That was enough. Half the crew started backing away, hands up, swearing they didn't sign up for this. The other half looked ready to run but didn't want to be the first. Darius stood there like a man watching his own story collapse. Angelo didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just stepped forward again, slow and certain, and looked Darius dead in the eyes. "This is what real protection looks like," Angelo said. "Not fear, not control. Control is what you did." Darius's face tightened, rage fighting panic. "You think this makes you noble?" Angelo's voice dropped. "No, it makes me responsible." Darius's chest heaved. He looked around, realizing his numbers didn't matter. And for the first time he understood something he'd never had to understand before. Angelo wasn't here to impress anyone. He was here to end it. Like if you want justice for Aisha, because Darius just realized he picked the wrong man to challenge. Comment what you think Darius does next, run, or double down. Darius tried to hold on to pride like it could shield him. He stared at Angelo, breathing hard, jaw clenched so tight his face looked painful. Behind him, his crew kept drifting backward, eyes darting, hands open, bodies angled toward escape. Darius snapped at them, voice cracking. "Don't you move," one guy muttered. "Bro, we moving," another said. "This ain't what you said it was." Darius whipped his head around. "Shut up!" Angelo didn't glance at them. He kept his eyes on Darius like the rest was already decided. "You used fear like it was love," Angelo said quietly. "And now you're shocked it doesn't work here." Darius's nostrils flared. "She needed boundaries." Angelo's voice stayed calm. "She needed safety." Darius took a step forward, fists clenched. "You're acting like you're better than me." Angelo nodded once. "I'm trying to be." That answer threw Darius off more than an insult would have. Darius barked a laugh, shaky. "So what? You gonna beat me up and play hero?" Angelo's eyes went colder. "I'm not a hero." Darius spread his arms, daring him. "Then do it. Do what you came to do." Marco shifted slightly behind Angelo. "Ready." Angelo lifted one hand without looking back. "Stop." Marco froze, because Angelo wasn't here to prove violence. He was here to break a pattern. Darius's voice turned sharp again, desperate now. "You can't protect her forever." Angelo stepped in close enough that Darius could feel him without being touched. "I don't have to." Darius blinked. "What?" Angelo's voice was steady. "Because she's learning to protect herself. That's what you can't handle." Darius's face twisted. "She's nothing without me." Angelo's tone dropped lower. "She was something before you. She'll be something after you." Darius lunged. It wasn't smart. It wasn't planned. It was pure ego trying to grab back control. Angelo moved like he'd already seen it coming. He sidestepped, caught Darius's arm and turned him. Quick, efficient. Darius stumbled, and Angelo drove him down to a knee, not with cruelty, but with finality. Darius grunted, trying to twist free. "Get off me!" Angelo didn't slam him. He didn't keep hitting him. He just held him there, pinned by leverage, not rage, while Darius's crew watched their leader look small for the first time. Marco stepped forward, voice flat. "It's over." Darius spat toward the ground. "You think you won?" Angelo leaned in, voice low enough to feel personal. "No. Winning would be easy." Darius's eyes narrowed. "So what? You gonna end me and feel righteous about it?" Angelo held his gaze. "That's what you think power is." Darius smiled, ugly and desperate. "That's what power is." Angelo paused for a beat, like he was looking at two doors inside himself. One door was the old way, the easy way, the way everyone expected. The other door was harder, cleaner, more dangerous to his reputation with certain people. Angelo chose the harder door. He stood up, releasing pressure but keeping control of the space. Marco and the men moved in tight around Darius, restraining him before he could scramble. Darius blinked rapidly, confused. "What are you doing?" Angelo pulled his phone out. Darius laughed. "You calling more guys?" Angelo didn't look away as he dialed. "No." Darius's smile faded. Then who? Angelo put the phone to his ear. Providence Police. I'm at the docks off Allens Avenue. I have a man here who attacked my employee and destroyed property. He's with a group. Send units. The yard went silent. Even the wind felt like it paused. Marco's eyes flicked to Angelo. Surprise and respect mixed together. Darius's face went blank, like his brain couldn't process it. You calling cops? Angelo ended the call and looked straight at him. Yes. Darius's voice rose, panicked. You can't do that. That makes you look... Angelo cut him off, calm and deadly. I don't care what it makes me look like. Darius thrashed once, then stopped when it didn't change anything. His eyes darted, searching for fear in Angelo's face. He found none. What about your reputation? Darius snapped. You think people gonna respect you when you do that? Angelo leaned in slightly. I'm not choosing my ego over her freedom. Darius's throat worked. She's gonna come back to me. You hear me? She always comes back. Angelo's eyes tightened. Not this time. Darius tried again, voice turning softer, weaponizing emotion the way he always did. Aisha. She needs me. She don't know how to live without me. Angelo stared at him like he was tired of the lie. She'll learn, and you'll learn what it feels like when fear doesn't buy loyalty. Darius's breathing got shallow. You think you're teaching a lesson? Angelo's answer was quiet. I'm ending a cycle. Sirens started in the distance, faint, then louder. Red and blue lights flickered against metal containers, making the dockyard look like it was flashing its teeth. Darius's eyes widened. He turned his head, watching the lights get closer like they were a nightmare he couldn't wake up from. Then he looked back at Angelo, and for the first time his voice didn't sound tough. It sounded scared. You really gonna do this? Angelo met his gaze, steady. Yes, and in that moment the thing Darius had used on Aisha, fear, finally failed him. Because it wasn't in her hands anymore, it was in his. If you're still here, you're real. Subscribe now. Because the way Angelo ends this war is not what you think. Comment where you're watching from if you want Aisha to get her life back for good. Aisha didn't watch the news. She didn't scroll. She didn't pace by the window like she used to when Darius was late, and her stomach would twist with dread. She sat on the edge of the bed in Tasha's aunt's guest room in Pawtucket, hands folded, breathing slow on purpose. Monique sat in a chair near the door like a guard who didn't need a weapon. Tasha leaned against the wall, arms crossed, listening to every sound outside. Deacon James had already prayed with them and left quietly, like he didn't need to be there to still cover them. The room was warm, but Aisha's hand stayed cold. Her phone lay face up on the blanket. Silent. Too silent. Monique watched her. You want me to hold it? Aisha shook her head no. If something comes, I need to see it. Tasha muttered. If something comes, we handle it. Aisha swallowed. That's the thing. I've been trying to handle it alone for so long, I don't even know how to... Wait. Monique's face softened. Waiting isn't weakness. Waiting is you letting other people love you. Aisha's throat tightened. I don't feel lovable right now. Monique leaned forward, voice firm. Stop talking like that. Aisha looked down. I keep thinking, what if this gets worse? What if he gets out? What if Hargrove? Tasha cut in, sharp. That Hargrove man doesn't scare me. Monique side-eyed her. He should. Tasha shrugged. Still don't. Aisha's phone buzzed once. All three of them went still. Aisha stared at the screen, chest tight. Marco. Aisha answered so fast her voice almost broke. Hello? Marco's tone was calm, controlled. You safe? Aisha swallowed. Yes. Are you... Is Angelo... It's done, Marco said. Aisha blinked, like her brain didn't accept simple answers anymore. Done. How? Marco didn't brag. He didn't add drama. Darius is in custody. Full statements. Witnesses. He's not walking away from this. Aisha's breath left her in a shaky rush. She covered her mouth, eyes burning. Monique leaned in. What did he say? Aisha couldn't speak. She just held the phone out. Monique listened, eyes narrowing, then softening with relief. Marco continued. The bigger piece is moving too. Hargrove's people are nervous. When cops get involved and there's evidence, that changes how they operate. Aisha whispered, Does it mean I'm safe? Marco paused, then answered honestly. It means you're safer than you've been in a long time. Aisha's voice trembled. Is Angelo okay? Marco's tone shifted a fraction. He's fine. He's on his way. Aisha swallowed hard. Tell him. Tell him thank you. Marco's voice was steady. Tell him yourself. The call ended. Aisha stared at her phone like it was a door that had finally opened. Monique exhaled long. Thank God. Tasha nodded, jaw unclenching. Good. Aisha's shoulders started shaking. She tried to hold it in, but the tears came anyway. Quiet at first, then heavier. The kind that come from your body realizing it can stop bracing. Monique stood and wrapped her arms around her. Let it out. Aisha sobbed into her shoulder. I didn't think I'd get out. Monique kissed the side of her head. You did. Aisha pulled back slightly, face wet. We did. A knock came at the front door downstairs. Tasha straightened immediately. I got it. Monique held up a hand. Wait. Check first. Tasha moved quietly to the window, peered through the curtain, then nodded. It's him. Aisha's heart jumped. Angelo? Tasha stepped away from the window. Yeah. Aisha stood so fast she almost lost balance. Monique caught her elbow. Breathe, baby. Aisha nodded, forcing air in. She walked to the hallway, each step feeling unreal. When she reached the living room, Angelo was already inside. No dramatic entrance. No loud energy. Just a man standing in a plain room, coat damp from the night air, face tight with something that looked like exhaustion and relief at the same time. He looked at Aisha, and his shoulders dropped slightly like he'd been holding weight until he saw her alive. Aisha didn't know what to say. Angelo spoke first, voice low. Hi. Aisha's eyes filled again. Hi. He took a step toward her, then stopped, waiting. The same way he always did. Aisha closed the distance and threw her arms around him. Angelo froze for half a second, then wrapped her gently, like he was holding something precious, not something he owned. Aisha's voice cracked against his chest. You're okay? Angelo nodded. I'm okay. Aisha pulled back, staring at his face like she needed proof. It's done? Angelo's eyes stayed steady. It's done. Monique stood behind Aisha, watching Angelo like a test. Angelo glanced at her and nodded respectfully. Thank you for being here for her. Monique's lips pressed together, then she nodded once. Don't thank me. Just keep being consistent. Angelo didn't argue. I will. Tasha cleared her throat. And that Hargrove guy? Angelo's jaw tightened slightly. He'll be handled the right way. Tasha narrowed her eyes. What's the right way? Angelo met her gaze. The way that doesn't put Aisha back in the middle. Aisha's chest loosened at that. Angelo turned back to Aisha. His voice softened. You hungry? Aisha blinked. What? Angelo's mouth twitched faintly. You haven't eaten. Your hands are cold. Aisha looked down at her fingers like she'd forgotten they existed. I don't know. Angelo nodded slowly. Okay, we can just sit. Aisha swallowed. I don't want to go back to my apartment. Angelo's eyes stayed calm. You don't have to. Aisha exhaled. I keep waiting for you to tell me what to do. Angelo shook his head once. Not my job. Aisha stared at him. Then what is your job? Angelo's voice was quiet. To respect you. To protect you when you ask. And to support what you choose. Aisha's throat tightened. Then I choose. I want my life back. Angelo nodded. Tell me what that looks like. Aisha took a breath, feeling the words like a promise. School. I'm re-enrolling. I'm finishing. Monique smiled through tears behind her. Aisha continued, voice stronger. I'm going back to church. I'm not hiding. I'm volunteering again. Angelo nodded once. Good. Aisha swallowed. And I want normal. I want mornings where I'm not scared to check my phone. Angelo's eyes softened. You'll have that. Aisha blinked. How do you know? Angelo's answer was simple. Because you chose it. And you're not alone anymore. Aisha breathed in, then out. For the first time in a long time, it felt like the air belonged to her. Comment where you're watching from if you're proud of Aisha for choosing herself. Subscribe for the next part, because her new life starts right now. Angelo's mother didn't live in a mansion. That was the first thing Aisha noticed when Angelo drove her to dinner 2 nights later. The house sat on a quiet street in Cranston. Neat yard, porch light on, a wreath still hanging like the season hadn't fully let go. Warm, normal, lived in. Aisha's hands were sweaty the whole ride. Angelo glanced at her. "You don't have to do this," Aisha exhaled. "Yes, I do." Angelo nodded. "Okay, but remember the rule?" Aisha blinked. "What rule?" Angelo's voice was gentle. "You decide." Aisha swallowed, then nodded. "Right." They walked up the steps. Angelo knocked once, then again. The door swung open, and an older woman stood there with silver hair pulled back, soft eyes, and an expression that instantly read the room. She looked at Angelo first. "Anthony." Aisha blinked. "Anthony?" Angelo's mouth tightened like he'd been caught doing something human. "Ma!" His mother's gaze shifted to Aisha. Not judgmental, curious, warm, protective in her own way. "And who is this?" she asked. Angelo stepped slightly aside so Aisha didn't feel hidden. "This is Aisha," Aisha managed. "Hi, ma'am." His mother smiled. "Come in, baby." The kitchen smelled like fried chicken, greens, and something sweet in the oven. The dining table sat set for four with real plates, not fancy, just cared for. Angelo's mother watched Aisha take it in, then touched her arm lightly. "You can relax in my house. Nobody raises their voice here." Aisha's throat tightened. "Thank you." Angelo's mother shot Angelo a look. "You look tired." Angelo tried to shrug it off. "I'm fine." His mother didn't buy it. "Sit." Angelo sat. Aisha sat too, still tense. Angelo's mother served food like feeding people was her way of fixing the world. "Eat," she said. "You can tell me everything later." Angelo muttered. "Ma?" She waved him off. "Not later like I'm interrogating. Later like you're safe enough to breathe." Aisha stared down at her plate, stunned by how direct love could be when it wasn't conditional. Halfway through dinner, Angelo's mother looked at Aisha and asked softly, "Are you okay, baby?" The question wasn't polite. It was real. Aisha swallowed hard. "I'm getting there." Angelo's mother nodded like she understood without details. "Good. And my son, he treatin' you right?" Aisha glanced at Angelo. Angelo didn't speak. He didn't answer for her. He just waited. Aisha's chest warmed at that small thing. "Yes," she said. "He respects me." Angelo's mother nodded once. "That's the only answer I accept." Angelo's jaw flexed slightly, like he didn't know what to do with being seen so clearly. After dinner, Angelo walked Aisha back to the car. He didn't touch her unless she moved close first. He didn't try to turn the night into something else. He just stayed steady. Aisha paused by the passenger door. "Your mom?" "She's amazing." Angelo's eyes softened. "She's the reason I'm not worse than I could have been." Aisha looked at him. "You're trying." Angelo nodded once. "Yeah," Aisha hesitated. "And thank you for not making me feel like I owe you." Angelo's voice was quiet. "I never want you to feel trapped again." Aisha's throat tightened. "You're doing a good job." Angelo exhaled slowly, like that mattered more than praise in a club ever could. "So are you." The next Sunday, the church cookout took over the parking lot behind New Hope Baptist. Smoke from the grill curled into the air. Kids ran around with paper plates. Old men argued about football like the season was tomorrow. Women laughed loud, music playing from a speaker that kept cutting in and out. Aisha walked in with Monique beside her, head up. She wasn't hiding. People looked. Then they smiled. Then they hugged her like she'd been missed. And when Angelo stepped in behind her, hands visible, posture calm, the energy shifted. Not hostile, just watchful. Monique leaned close to Aisha. "They're about to test him." Aisha whispered back, "Good." A deacon approached first, not Deacon James. Another one with a serious face. He looked Angelo up and down. "You, the man from the velvet room?" Angelo nodded respectfully. "Yes, sir." The deacon's eyes narrowed. "What are your intentions with our sister?" Aisha's heart pounded. Angelo glanced at Aisha first. Silent question. Aisha nodded slightly, answer. Angelo turned back to the deacon. "My intention is respect and support. Nothing forced." The deacon studied him. "That's a nice speech." Angelo didn't flinch. "It's not a speech, it's a promise I live." A church mother stepped in, eyes sharp. "Baby, we don't need pretty words. We need consistency." Angelo nodded. "I agree." Monique watched, impressed. Then the test came. A little boy, one of the youth group kids, ran straight into Angelo's legs by accident. Angelo didn't snap. didn't look annoyed. He crouched down immediately and smiled gently. "You okay?" Angelo asked. The boy looked up, wide-eyed, then nodded. "Yeah." Angelo handed him his dropped juice pouch. "You're moving fast out here. Be careful." The boy grinned and ran off. A few people exchanged looks. That was the thing about respect. It showed in moments you couldn't fake. Later, Aisha sat at a picnic table with a plate of food, watching Angelo help an older man carry a cooler without being asked, watching him listen more than he talked. Monique sat beside her. "He's doing good." Aisha nodded, eyes soft. "He is." Monique leaned in. "And you?" Aisha smiled slightly. "I feel safe." Monique squeezed her hand. "Good, because safety is the foundation, not chaos." As the sun dipped lower, Angelo walked back over to Aisha and stopped a few feet away, waiting. Aisha looked up. "Hey." Angelo's voice was soft. "Can I talk to you?" Aisha nodded. "Yeah." Angelo sat beside her, leaving space. "I'm not trying to rush anything," he said, "but I want you to know something." Aisha's chest tightened. "Okay." Angelo looked at her, eyes steady. "I care about you, and I'm willing to show it slow, the way you need." Aisha swallowed. "I care about you too." Angelo didn't move closer. He just let the words sit. Aisha took a breath, then leaned in first. Angelo paused, giving her a final chance to change her mind. She didn't. Their kiss was soft. Unhurried, not a claim. Not a trophy moment. A choice. Aisha pulled back with a small laugh, surprised at herself. Angelo's eyes softened. "You okay?" Aisha nodded, smiling. "Yeah, I'm okay." And that was the moral without a speech love can protect. But love never controls. Like if you're proud of Aisha for choosing a love that feels safe and real. Comment, what lesson hit you hardest in this story?